well, but it's gonna be a little bit different. Karen, Travis and I had a discussion about sort of measuring some of the, well, but it's gonna be a little bit different. Oh, okay.
It's early.
For interrupting.
John, you interrupted yourself.
We had a call the other day about sort of measuring some of the metrics that we've been talking about this year, and Travis had come up with an interesting take on it. And so we're gonna do a roundtable, but kind of, I'll let Travis talk. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question was, what are the sort of intangibles that we want to try and do a better job at measuring? Because we get normal statistics that are very useful, but our responsibility is to develop our economy in a way that satisfies the will of the residents of Scarborough. And so what we were talking about is, how do you measure that? How do we measure that we're getting at the things that the taxpayers ask of us and that the council instructs us? And I just tossed out this term happiness index, which is the things that people express that they want that will make them happy living here. What are the things that make them feel good about living here? And how are the choices that we're making in economic development getting us closer to that? How are we achieving improving the happiness and the quality of life of people who live here? So it's things like places to eat and things to do with your kids on the weekends. What are the things that people say they want? And when you're hanging around people complaining, say, oh, but only if Scarborough had, you know, how are we working toward that ever-changing goal? So I think the reason we want to do this is because we don't have that defined, but we'd like to try and define it to tell people that we're trying to give them what they want, but why Scarborough is special, not just why we have low unemployment rates and the numbers that are easy to point toward.
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is we started this conversation and the three of us spoke for about an hour, really kind of fleshing it out. So I don't feel like we need to, you know, have this nailed down at, you know, in a 15-minute segment of this meeting. But I guess what happened was we started talking about things we could measure other than, like Travis said, just the basic, very basic, you know, metrics. And one of the things that I thought of as well, when we went back and looked at some of the priorities from our planning session, you know, it was bringing desirable industries to Scarborough. That was sort of, so that was, you know, and then you kind of go down that road a bit. How do you define that? You know, so one of the things I said is, are they good for the environment? You know, are there industries where there can be a good work-life balance? So it was just sort of that sort of string. I mean, I think at one point we were talking about how there's, you know, we're for responsible development. I mean, you can always build a new strip mall somewhere. But, you know, how can we measure if the development that we're encouraging and supporting is leading to the happiness index that Travis mentioned? And that was sort of where we wanted to kick off.
I thought this was an interesting variation on the theme here, but I've been thinking about it a little bit. And this may be the other side of the same coin, but I wonder whether we should talk about coming up with the 8 or 9 or 10 things that a community such as Scarborough would look to provide its citizens to increase their happiness, and then try to rank where Scarborough fits in on those 8 or 9 or 10 things, rather than just say, well, we think beaches have happiness, open space, or low taxes.
You mean ranking with terms of surrounding
Talk with the 10
communities, or
characteristics that a community, if it addressed, would make its citizens happy. And then try to figure out where Scarborough ranks. How does Scarborough measure up to those 10 characteristics?
That might help guide us in the ones that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think, just a thought.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So the discussion would be what generally are the. I mean, there are, what are the characteristics of this community of Scarborough's type? That it should be aiming to achieve. For its citizens, and then we can say, okay. How does Scarborough measure up to that?
Yeah.
Item 1, item 2. That way we'll have some kind of.
Great. Yeah. And don't hold back. I mean, just, this is brainstorming and we can figure out how to do the measurement later. Just start listening. Rick, you want to start?
Well,
you have all 10 ready to go.
indeed. Yeah. No, but again,
No, I know.
I was gonna, when I was thinking about this last night, I said, well, to me, Scarborough's providing of, beaches and open space is one, but maybe what I should be saying is a community like Scarborough should strive to create open spaces that citizens can enjoy with their kids. Community like Scarborough should strive to have good school systems at reasonable cost, etc. So I guess I would start by saying a municipality should provide places for its citizens to relax and recreate, either directly or working, say, with a land trust or something.
I guess my only comment would be I think it's important for us in order to not. Is to. Keep like how can the economic development that we're supporting lead to those things?
Right.
Because I think we could all come up with a list of 10 things that we wish. Or that we think a town should have, but I think in terms of. What we're doing is. What can we do to help get there through the development that we're supporting, I guess.
Isn't that part 2 of the discussion once we figure out part 1?
Yep.
Right. Okay. All right. So Rick's challenged. He's got 2. I mean, he challenged us. He's not challenged. He challenged us. So he's got 2. Helen?
Safety.
Lightning round.
Transportation or access.
Anyone?
Library.
Any more? Any definition on that library?
I just think that having the ability to be able to keep up with a changing library today, because libraries are no longer what they were 50 years ago. And the services that they provide.
Okay.
And kind of on that point too, like a teen center, like after school, that library is full of middle schoolers. Going through a time, so if they had a place where they could go, instead of like speaking from experience, my teenage daughter in a room on her phone, so you have a better place we can go and socialize.
So they can be together
On their phone, but just together.
Not talking, but on.
Yeah.
Well, and I think year-round options for families and people with kids. We have wonderful outdoor options, but in February, when there's nothing to do and I need to get my kids somewhere, Scarborough had more, we're talking about community center space to bring your kids. I think I hear it from other parents all the time too.
Did anyone say, did he say schools? He did, okay.
But you can add more if you want to define that. Good schools at reasonable costs.
With nice playgrounds.
More restaurants or walkable downtown.
Walkable.
Breakfast. Restaurant.
Breakfast.
Oh, sidewalks.
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 Oh, I would love some.
Trails.
Outdoor.
What else makes our community, a community happy?
It could also be like diversity of jobs as well. Being able to attract young talent. That wants to move to town to be the next generation coming up.
I would say too, I think in general, sustainability initiatives are I was just talking with someone who's like, Portland is no pesticide city. And whether that's a plus or a negative, it is growing. And I think people are looking for communities that embrace sustainability in different ways. They're looking at retirement communities that embrace sustainability.
Anything about retirement communities go on the happiness index?
I would think that would, having that
Well, I,
would be an amenity that towns would want.
Having options or?
yeah,
I brought in
I
housing
was gonna
options.
say housing options, yeah.
You know,
I think-
I'm of the age, my kids are late 20s, and
Mhm,
the reality
Struggling.
is they can't come back here because it's,
mhm,
more expensive.
Mhm.
Access to health, yeah.
yeah.
Kevin, you've been silent.
Well, everyone's taking my idea.
Okay.
I'd say, cultural options. You gotta go elsewhere
Mhm.
most of the time. And I mean, from performance to museums or small. I think, I think I'll just say, I think one of the most significant projects that's been going on in Scarborough is the renovation of that old schoolhouse on Holmes Road, which has gone very slowly, but you're really starting to see it, and it reflects what this community once was. And I just think it's a tremendous investment. And I think we have so many new people in our community that being able to look back on the past of what this community once was is something that I just think it would better. It would be better for everybody.
I think a lot of these, that's a good example, Kevin, kind of fall under being that we talked about a lot in the downtown committee, which is collision space. We're such a big spread out town. There aren't places where we know we can go and just run into people we know in our community and just run into them because we're in a cultural space or we're in a walkable downtown or something. I think that feeling of a place where we go where we know we're going to cross paths with our neighbors is something that makes people feel like they're a part of their community.
Could I push on the new residents? Is there something that makes new residents happy? Well, because we have, even if we're not growing unit wise, we still have 10% new people every year. So what are we doing? How do we affect their happiness or? Anything about welcoming or?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. We should be welcoming.
Yeah, I have to say it, I guess. I appreciate those comments. I live in a neighborhood with 35 houses. I bet you, and I've lived there for 28 years. I don't know half of them.
Mm,
You don't see people anymore going out, walking the neighborhoods, and actually talking to their neighbors. I don't see it. And
I live in
30,
the same neighborhood,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't either, but there's no sidewalks.
yeah, I understand that, Helen, but we live
Where I've been
primarily on
driving
a, I live on a cul-de-sac or near one, and
But
we're
I
not
think
getting
but
the
you mean-
traffic that I
you-
think that would require us.
you say out walking around, but you also mean like block parties and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Oh,
Just
absolutely.
So,
There are
neighborhood,
things that just
neighborhood-
don't bring,
neighborhood.
there is
groups.
one group of people that walk.
Yeah.
People that own dogs, and outside of that, you don't see them, anybody walking.
so
See,
knowing your
I-
neighbors is a happiness indicator.
Yeah,
I live on a cul-de-sac with 12 houses, 10 of which have been there since we built in 1999. And 2 houses of younger couples with young kids.
Yeah.
And they're the new people, but we're gonna have a changeover. I
Yes,
mean, all these
Our
long-term
neighborhood-
homeowners.
yeah, yeah,
are
our
all
neighborhood's
retirement age.
changed
We're-
and,
Houses started.
yeah,
Oh, yeah,
and,
I-
cause
at
when I
least
was,
half.
yeah.
Mm.
Cause my son didn't have anyone his age on our street. And then now we look at, and there's like this whole gang, I will call them a gang. That are running around, and it's wonderful, but you know, it is cyclical in these
Yeah, and
neighborhoods.
then not only that, but then there's, the little kids. The bus
Yeah.
stop, you know.
Oh, the bus,
I don't know.
oh, yeah, I know.
That's probably why you don't know more people out when it's not standing at the bus stop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
exactly.
I'm
And
watching
if you-
the
that would
cars
be bad.
that are parking there and trying to get out safely,
And I know you know that people like.
right around.
Right around you,
Yeah,
exactly.
right around.
As you
But
see them
going back to kind of finish the comment. One of you said a community space where you could go and meet people, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just old now, but I'm not sure that building a building is gonna bring people together. What's gonna bring people together is whatever we're sharing at that time, or what is gonna be the draw that's gonna actually bring people together, because I grew up mid-state, grew up in Old Town. And I've been involved in organizations that are statewide, been all over the state for work and other items. And the only place that I truly have seen community in the last 40 years is Aroostook County. They have community. Because they have to. Now, I think it's more of a need. It's great. We don't have community here. Anybody who thinks we do, I think are kidding themselves.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Alan. I think the idea of collision spaces is people go there for various reasons and end up crossing each other's paths.
Right.
And so start forcing them at chance encounters.
So I,
Yeah, the reality is if you don't have school age kids, it's very hard to have
Absolutely.
chance encounters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
In Hannaford, maybe
Yeah.
you go to church, you might see them coming going, but other than that.
But they also rotate every year, so it's like, to me, it's very difficult to know parents. Because I mean, next year. Kids rotate, so if there are like 4 classes. You get to know parents, and then next year, they move to different classes.
Mhm.
So then you don't know parents anymore, and you have to get to know them again.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's kind of like, to me, it's very difficult because I already, learned who the parents are. And now suddenly I have to learn again.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, sports is the greatest.
Sports is
Yeah.
faithful,
but if they are not into
Absolutely.
sports.
Yeah.
that's
Clubs.
or clubs,
Yeah,
sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
that's not-
But even on the sports teams, I said that you don't have school age kids. But my kids both played 3 different sports every year. And we had very good friends and their parents. We wouldn't see them but for that season, it was just
Right.
really odd in that regard. We just don't have those opportunities.
Well, it's not like we don't do any.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't say that I don't think we have any
We have
community. I think it could be
They'll have that.
improved. And I do think, I think what you said about it, like the building itself won't. But if you can do things, I think it can. If you can have a place to increase the likelihood of bumping, and then you build things around it.
yeah, it's
I think it can
creating a
be help-
draw.
Yeah,
I think the restaurant space is creating an
Mhm.
opportunity that didn't exist 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I look back, when we were running the summer concert series on the library lawn, and if we got 75 people, we were like excited.
Yeah.
And it was the town, Owen, when the park had been built. And he made the suggestion of moving the concerts over to the park, and we were welcome to it, and look where it is now. I mean, you know, you've got 6 weeks in the summer where you're getting, you know, on some nights in excess of 1,000 people there,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, it's.
Yeah, what that tells us is that when we plan these kinds of events, people come out.
Oh,
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
The draw.
The draw.
you can convener.
And maybe a more active, and I know we have a Chamber of Commerce, but maybe a more active, a very specific chamber, because we're part of the Portland Chamber,
Mhm.
correct?
You know, a few years ago, I worked with the YMCA before,
You?
yeah, before the, for the, what's her name, Taylor.
Oh,
Cindy Taylor?
yeah.
Cindy bought, or at least the school for the town, but YMCA wanted to go there and they were gonna build a pool and it was gonna be a fabulous facility. But financially, it just didn't work. That kind, if we could encourage a YMCA to come and build a facility in Scarborough with a track, with a pool, whatever. The South Portland pool facility is a huge draw.
Yep.
Mhm.
My niece is one of the swimming instructors there. That place is packed
mhm.
All the time.
every day, every weekend. Now, maybe the
All
same
ages.
200 or 300 or 400 people that go there, but nevertheless, it is a draw.
Mhm.
We don't have that. I'm not suggesting that the town should build. I mean, this community center concept is interesting. It doesn't seem to want to get off its stuff. But, you know, would the YMCA reconsider coming to Scarborough or another
Mhm.
nonprofit type facility like that? Those types of facilities drop you. I don't think people get up every morning and say, well, where are we gonna go today in Scarborough to spend our free time? But they do go to things when they're offered, or they'll go to places like a pool, like a community center, like a track, those sorts of things. But people go and relax and they see people.
Just jumping on that point, because at the beginning of this, and I was trying not to go to economic development, but.
Go for it.
Well. Higgins, Pine Point. And Andrea remembers this, I mean, and Rick, you too. I mean, it was a concerted effort on the part of the town to make. Pine Point more attractive to people. And Pine Point is like night and day over what it was 15 years ago. There are dining options, there's parking, there are sidewalks. It's way more attractive than it was. And yeah, it's regional, but it's local down there. And it does cater to summer residents more and all of that, and it's really differentiated from what you get in Old Orchard Beach. Old Orchard Beach hasn't really changed. It hasn't changed. It's Old Orchard Beach and it always should be. But and I can look at other areas, like I can remember when we were talking about, as the entry into town,
Mhm.
And the development of the main health campus over there. And I mean, these are things that we've seen just since being
Mhm.
on this board.
Mhm.
And what other community offers you the chance to see all those nuts out there surfing in their wetsuits out at Higgins Beach on days? I mean, it is a beautiful setting out there. And at the same time has a biking and walking trail like the Eastern Trail that just attracts a lot of people. And a lot of them are locals. I mean, it's just or any of the, like, my part of town I see full of farm, and parking lot is full every time you drive by it. So it's like that balance of it's all about balance.
Tom, do you want to mention the deadline for appointments for applying to be on the community center?
Yeah, so the town has money in this year's budget, and we're in the final stages of selecting a consultant to bring some new life back into the community center concept. We studied it in detail back in 2018-19, before the pandemic, at the end of 19, and it just kind of fell off. And that was really focused on our public-private partnership with the Downs.
Mhm.
But many of the ingredients and talking points of that process still alive and well. So this effort is really about the town going forward on its own. So to that end, they're assembling another committee that will draw from members from the prior effort. There's some really quality folks, existing committees, and then I think 4 at-large positions as well. So that's open and available until June 7th. And we're looking to do that really over the balance of this year and maybe into the spring of next year.
And Andrea was mentioning a project. Do you want to tell them about that
Yeah,
partnership?
so
And I've got a little
down in
feedback on
New
that.
Jersey, my sister lives in New Jersey, and I happened to go to their community center. But it was a partnership with the town and their large medical center. So it would be here, it would be like Maine Medical or Martins Point and the town creating a center that would be medical, but also they had gym, they had a fitness center, they had a track, they had, just, it was a wonderful building and access, all indoor, which was really nice.
What's the name of the town? Just so
So
I've got-
it's Huntington, it's Hunterdon County
Mhm.
Medical Health Center or something like
Yeah.
that. I can't remember.
Tom, I've got some pictures of that and a couple of other examples. The only thing I'd follow up with is, I did talk briefly
Yeah.
with Jeff,
Mhm.
from, the president at Maine Med. And what he said to me is, no, we wouldn't be interested because we contract all of the services for rehabilitation and physical therapy are actually contracted out. Now, it was a brief sort of casual discussion, whether or not there's an ability to follow up with that and say,
Mhm.
all right, well, you must have all of these different service providers. And many of them are probably right here.
Mhm.
So there's probably room to have a secondary conversation, but his initial piece was, no, let's shut this down. It could be, I think it was about the time we were also asking them about maybe doing a
Pilot.
pilot. So it might not have been the best time to talk with them about it.
The former president of Maine.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
He resigned.
It was just, it was an interesting partnership, and it was, it provided a lot of business for them as a medical center. But at the same time, it was a central area for everyone.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So I have some drawings and some descriptions of,
mhm,
I think we looked at a couple of 2 or 3.
mhm.
And we had that discussion with Dan Bacon saying, this is long ago, this is when they were first starting up before the original community center committee. And so we'd sort of looked at a couple of those items.
There's a project in Palmyra up near Newport. I don't think it has the public component, but it's a federally qualified health center. And it's a project called Hometown Health, and it really sounds like what you described. It's a gym, it's health and wellness.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's a local architect that's involved.
I'm gonna say maybe a different story now because obviously that discussion was before the pandemic. And with public health being first and foremost right now, there might be a broader discussion that could be had with Maine Health.
Yep.
Good discussion.
Okay. Anything else this is not a closed discussion. If something comes to you later. Give us make sure email either Magda or I or John or Travis.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
I just want to say I'm
Good.
appreciative for the basic conversation.
Mhm.
I've struggled a bit because my mind these days doesn't seem to be in the happiness realm.
This is always happening.
No, that's what I'm appreciative for. I think there's so much good in this town and always seem to focus on and search for is the negative, and it's just so unhealthy and so I appreciate it.
Well, I think it's safe to say, and thank you, Rick, for making your initial, because I think it was a great way to get the conversation going.
No.
I mean, I think there are obviously many of the items that were mentioned, there are ways to improve, but I think most, if not all of them, we have here.
Mhm.
And I think, you know,
Mhm.
that's a good thing.
And I think most, if not all, are the things that people start to fear that we're losing too. So some way of measuring and saying that there's more land, or there's, you know, those types of things, which is our next discussion. It's like,
Yeah,
how to pin
and
that down.
I mean, I think that we should approach this, I mean, let's not just try to make ourselves feel good by saying we have the best of everything. I think we should say we have these things, but how do we improve on all of them, you know? I mean, because everything can be improved on, and if there's some of those measurements might be higher than others. Some of the things that we've said, I mean, I think we're very, you know, just a very safe town with good school. I mean, those will probably, you know, but there's other things that we can improve on. Alan's comment about community and stuff like that, you know, so I think we just, next phase 2 is how do we encourage development that can help those things, right?
Slightly off topic, but I just want to make you aware, we'll be going back out to do another community survey over the summer and fall. So there may be an opportunity if SEDCO has a handful of questions or
Yeah.
kind of an area that you want to explore more. Let's make sure we get those thoughts.
I think that would be helpful. Personally, I was hoping that would be the
Yeah.
truth, that we could forward this, because I think you're right. Everybody focuses on the negative, and sometimes it comes through in the survey. We're asking about all the problems, but we're not asking about, hey, what is it that you want from your community?
And this might be creeping a little bit further away from our mission, but just sort of building on what John has said, every time people engage with these things that we're so proud of that we have, they love it here. And I mean, I love it here all the time, but whenever we go to the concert in the park, and then we grab mottos on the way home, I get in the car and say, I just love this town, you know? And so I think that when people lose connection to the things that make it so special, they start to grumble about what's not here. And so maybe as a mission for the town, we need to find a better way to get people to engage with all these things we're already proud of. And then we can also figure out where the holes are,
Right.
you know?
Do you mind sharing the story you told us about your?
Oh, my wife went to a birthday party for my 4-year-old's friend at his school, and I think almost everybody there is new to Scarborough within 5 years. Most of their 4-year-olds weren't even born here. And on the one hand, they were complaining about how there isn't enough to do and there aren't enough resources and things for their kids to do. And on the other hand, they were complaining about development, particularly in towns. And so, you know, that connection just isn't being made, that we're trying to solve your problem. And I don't know how you get those people to engage enough to learn, but I think beginning with engaging with the things we already have and saying, oh, this town is trying, this town has great things. And then maybe being a little bit more willing to trust the direction that we're trying to go.
I think that goes to what Tom was just saying, that there is a tendency to just try to find the negative, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what
Oh, yeah.
is happening. It's like this is a negative, that there's nothing to do, but development, which literally creates things to do, is also a negative. And so I think part of that is trying to reframe the conversation. And if you can somehow reframe it, that there are a lot of positives that I think everyone knows. That if you can somehow just get them out there, yes, we can improve on certain things, but you know, there's a lot of positives, probably much more than there are negatives.
It's almost like a public relations campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about that, I think, a number of years ago, about SEDCO, because no one knew about SEDCO, like, well, let's get our name out there, let's do more. Let's put articles in the newspaper. So I think that, I don't know if there's funds for like some kind of a marketing campaign, but I think especially as we want to do more development, potentially that could support these negatives, that campaign might be.
And, you know, we could put
Right.
some thought into what that is and maybe how we can engage our business community. But for instance, I went to Alaska in October many years ago. And it was right at the time when the tourists were leaving and all of the local deals started. And they were called like tourist seasons over local deals. And so I think that there might be ways for us to engage our residents and say like, hey, you're one of the lucky ones. You live here. Here are some things we get. I mean, the beach passes alone
Yeah,
are such a
Such a good
enormous
deal.
incentive to live
Yeah.
here. But if we can think of more of those things to connect with our taxpayers and say like, this is what you get for living here. Take advantage of it.
Catch your name we need.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't even know if it would be possible, but just in terms of answering one of the issues that you just brought up in terms of people not knowing what's going on. How practical, and I think I already know the answer, unfortunately, would it be to try to pull together a community calendar?
So we have one.
Well, I'm talking, well, maybe I don't know what or where it is, but one that comes from all the different aspects of the
And
town.
we have,
Not-
Summits, right?
Yeah, we probably haven't publicized it, because that's the thing, there's so
Yeah.
much turnover in town, people don't know about this.
Because you're, I
Doesn't
think
the,
you really pushed
yeah.
hard.
Yeah, so we,
We have a sense of how many people get the town news, email newsletter,
it's about two
That's
thousand,
awesome.
Yeah, about 2,000.
yeah,
I think more even.
but
Yeah.
that tends to focus, it's not specific to, here's what's going on in Scarborough this week or this month or something.
right,
Alice,
Just
check
put it
that
out.
is a good one, if we had a
Can you
weekly
pull
or
up the community
bi-weekly
calendar for a
email to
second?
residents that focused on things going on in Scarborough.
Share,
And
share
we
the
could
screen.
invite not only,
Oh, it's on our
municipal
website.
activities, but any private activities. Broadturn Farm had a Mother's Day thing
Yeah.
last week and co-sponsored by the.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Someone people showed up.
Right,
Yeah.
so we,
Huge effect.
yeah, we have this community calendar, it's great, anybody in the community, you can't submit sales and things like that, but you can submit any events. And it's just a really cute little picture of whatever the event is gonna be, or logo, description, and any organization can submit. And we've been working on this with Project Grace. And so Steffi's really good about putting in events and things like that. We haven't given it much love lately in terms of publicity and things like that.
Mhm.
So that's why I think
Yeah.
people don't know it's there, because we did it several years ago and said, hey, here's this resource now. And we try to keep up. We have both town events as well as any public sector. We depend on people to submit for it.
Does the town have an app?
We don't. We've,
No, that just popped into my head too. If we had that access to a calendar
Yeah.
in some sort of easy app and. I have awards notifications that pop up, so it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, oh, there you go. So you can see,
Okay.
this is on our website. But it also has a URL of its own. But
But you gotta go find,
yes, that's the thing. You have to
don't-
find
we
it. And it's,
communicate.
We
That
keep-
would be a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you get like important community.
Well, there's an app for if you find a,
There's an
if
app
you
for
come
that.
across a pothole in Scarborough, you can actually, there's an app that you can put that there's, right? I did it.
Well, who is on next?
I did
I
it.
know.
Yeah, There's a ton of information on next door.
Parent-
There is,
I-
but next door is, next door is tough.
Yeah.
Community
Mhm.
that's published weekly in the Scarborough.
Right.
Letter, And everybody in
Mhm.
town gets that.
Well, and if we're trying to capture people who haven't engaged already. Social media and like
Yeah.
Google advertising is so well targeted and you can spend exactly what you want and get people just within town limits.
Yeah.
Doing a Google ad for the community calendar probably would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
cheap.
It's not
cheap.
expensive.
And just share the link on
Yeah.
different, like, mom's website. I mean, it will just go
Right.
viral. It's like,
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't have an app, but we do, when you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get the push notification, it'll come to you.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah,
and we get a lot of folks are clicking through it and spending
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I think I think we have all the content. It's just that
Pulling it together.
looking at an app might be a good use of some of our marketing funds to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just want to say, as a 31-year resident of Scarborough, how much it's changed, and I think it would also benefit us to kind of highlight the things that we have accomplished in the last 3
Mhm.
decades. You know, the land trust, as Rick
Mhm.
talked about, the parking spaces and parking at Higgins Beach. I mean, it was the Memorial Park. I mean, it's just been so much that, so many positive things that the town has sponsored and developed that I think people need to be made aware of. And maybe take for granted, so they
Yeah.
do tend to be negative instead of positive.
But it needs to keep occurring, kind of, it's,
It's not one and
There's no-
But I
done.
think,
This-
but I think what I would highlight, because this is how I feel, is the town has been very thoughtful. on the way that they've
yeah,
Done
Yeah.
things. We haven't jumped into something and then said, oh, this is a bad idea after we've spent tons of money.
Yeah.
We're very thoughtful and we think of the consequences and the impact of our decisions.
I just see that as kind of like wrapping it up. If we have, or go down the road of an app, you could have a whole section on what's happened over the last, so that it's always there.
Yeah.
And always available on something that's
Mhm.
accessible to people,
Mhm.
so. You know,
It really comes down to creating good, consistent content
Mhm.
yeah,
and,
And regular, yeah,
and
that consistency is,
regularity.
yeah.
I think we've hit our stride with
Mhm.
Allison, our communications,
Yep.
that coming out every other week.
Mhm.
I think it's good information that I think people are interested in
Mhm.
seeing and good feedback. And the
Mhm.
reality is, that if we don't take credit for the good things
That's
we're
right.
doing or the points of interest, it doesn't usually get reported.
Yeah, no,
I think it's Andrea that's always said we need a um, a brag page, and we don't really have that. Like, hey,
That's
these are good
true.
things. I mean, Portland does it, lots of communities. Hey, we were ranked whatever on whatever rating. And we see those things, we think, oh, that's nice. And then we publicize it, but we don't keep track of it. We don't keep this long list of brags, if you will. And that's probably a useful page on the town's website and on ours.
We should have mentioned,
It would be helpful if you could summarize the stuff.
Yep.
Put it in a list, send it
Yep.
around to us, maybe we can give some thought to ranking,
Yeah,
maybe not 1 to 10. But
yeah.
a
Yeah,
good job,
definitely.
not such a good job, and then maybe a category that says suggestions for improvement or something. We can
Okay.
Keep working on this, and maybe it ends up in that community engagement
Mm-hmm.
discussion, or goes out to the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Conceivably, it could be added to the all boards meeting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've been here almost long as you have. I think Scarborough was a fabulous community.
Yeah.
I think we should focus on positives. There are things that can be done better. And the good community has a diversity of opinions on how things get done and how government operates. Generally speaking, I think Scarborough does a great job. I mean, I was very happy when they paved our street last year. Never did ask for that. It's a simple thing. Came in and did it.
Well, I've complimented Tom before, our public works department goes.
You know, a couple of trucks came by last week and where the plows messed up the lawn, fixed it all up and plant.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't ask for them to do that.
No.
Just come, so I mean, I think there were great things about this. Can there be improvements? Yes. But I think Tom was right. You need to focus on the positives and not get caught up in the negatives.
Right.
One
But
thing
I
I
would like to
wonder,
see the list.
if we have time to do in the next month is get something. If we could agree with the schools to send something home, even if it's just like, looking for stuff to do this summer, here's where you can find our community
Mm.
calendar. Here are some of the things the town has done in the last 10 years to improve public spaces.
Well, there's a newsletter, right, that the district,
Friday.
every Friday, and
I mean,
the district, but also
paper
each of the
packet.
schools, yeah.
With their report card, here's all.
Here's their first
It's all-
ours.
it's no business, but it's just
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
put all this work into Herd Park, you can go to Pine Point and
Mhm.
get food there. And
Things
Right.
to do and stuff.
Right. Could you pull up our
but if you're not
Visit
Visit
Scarborough
Scarborough.
website?
a parent of a child in school,
no, I know, it's something though. These are a lot of the people who have been here forever and people who just got here are the ones who are complaining.
Right.
So.
I mean, my wife was teaching here in the mid-70s, and I gotta tell you, this was not a town you wanted to come to now. You did not want to move here,
The other Scarborough.
yeah, I know. Maine.
but I mean, it has changed so much.
No, it's true. When we first moved here, it was like, oh, you're moving to mosquito town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The place you went through on your way to Old Orchard Beach.
There you go. Just as a reminder, this is our website
Yeah.
as well, which is Visit Scarborough, Maine.
Things
And
to do, where.
Yeah. it's got all the restaurants, the hotels, you know,
Events
there's an events calendar, there's a Scarborough map. So weirdly, there's a video down there that's of a beach, but it's not really Scarborough's beach. It came with a mop, but it looked like it. No, it's ours.
It's ours.
We manage it, we do it. Magda does all the work on
How do we
it.
get people to know what's there and go?
I know.
Yeah, I've never
That's-
seen this website my way,
Yeah,
You haven't? Oh, wow.
which is my fault.
yeah.
Got everything right there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Who knows birthdays?
yeah, I know, we,
Who would know to
it's,
go to?
Your son.
it's,
Yes, oh my God, yeah, oh,
Yeah.
with the
Maybe
circuit.
that's
I
the.
think I send that to my friend,
Maybe that's the-
son, that is.
yeah, I know. See, it's one of those things. We do it and then we publicize it a little bit and then we think people know about it and we
Wasn't
don't go back to
Portland-
it.
Wasn't Portland just last week, number 7 again?
Yeah.
Yes,
Went up a notch.
yeah, in the US news,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's pretty incredible that we're adjacent, to the number 7, look at that city.
I was gonna say, Jason,
And we've got beaches.
Yeah.
I
know,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, and we've got, it's pretty,
Isn't that funny?
and we've got perks.
it's important.
But I think the most important thing is like a collaboration, so just
Yeah.
to submit information, so all the organizations really need to submit content. Because for me to go through all the,
Yeah,
organizations and pull the events, it's like,
Mhm.
a week of work.
Well,
Right, that's
when you
communication.
update Scarborough, I love the business update Scarborough. on Facebook.
Okay.
I mean,
Mhm.
that has so much on it. And I don't know if other people look at it. I love when I see.
That's got
see
a
that
pretty,
stuff.
for us, it's got a pretty high following.
Mhm.
So it does seem to work. We get a lot of comments, particularly when we do adult beverages, right?
It seems like we're kind of zeroing in on engagement being a thing we should be
Yeah.
focusing on. Whether we need consultancy or just an ad campaign or something. We have so much to brag about and so much that should trigger people's happiness index already. We just aren't getting it in front of them. And I think that might be a theme that we should be looking at as a board because it does meet our missions.
Yeah.
Engaging the community with its community.
Mhm.
I completely agree. I mean, I think we've talked before about how a lot of times we're caught being reactionary to
Mhm.
whichever new business is requesting a TIF to come here or whichever new, but on a more proactive level, what Travis just said, just bragging about the town and what it's done, trying to change that narrative so that people, so that it's just the PR campaign,
Make people aware and not take for granted the wonderful things we have here, which I will daily say to my children in the summer as we were driving down a ferry beach, like people save all year to spend 1 week here and we live here.
Yeah.
There's our tagline right there.
I swear, we'd be driving over the beautiful marsh, and the sun is setting.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
I say the same, I know, I say
The
the
same
same
thing,
thing.
like you go down Pine Point Road and you hit that, where the new bridge is by the old, but you get that view, it's just like, wow.
Right, and that smell now, right?
Depends on what's on the after.
Yeah.
I don't really smell it.
It's a happy.
Yeah,
All right, well, thank you, everyone. That was really great. Sharon, you got.
I do. I have a lot and I'm gonna
great.
get that back
Thank
out
you,
to you.
Travis, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for
great idea.
helping to get that going. Next is just approvals, I think.
Hey, John, could I chime in real quick?
Sure.
Please.
I'm gonna lower my hand. I think I can do that.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we're
Was
sharing.
it down?
We were sharing, we didn't see it, sorry.
Was
we're
it- oh,
sharing the
that's
screen, so you were very tiny.
fine. That's fine. First, I just want to say, I really appreciate listening to that conversation. it actually reminded me a little bit of some of the discussions we had during council goal setting and things like that, like what's great about our community, what can use improvements. Just a couple of thoughts and anecdotes on my end. So I have a really good friend that moved here from, well, one of them's from Massachusetts, the other one's from New Jersey, and asking them like what it is they liked about Scarborough or Maine just in general. And their sentiment was that they were moving away from places that were highly commercialized and not in the sense of more of the box store strip mall vein. And I think that's probably where maybe our opportunity for SEDCO might lie, is the support of local small businesses. And I think it ties into that aspect of community you were discussing, which is I'm more likely to go participate in, get to know if there's a small local business owner, and have that sense of community. It's hard to have, a tie to a Target, you know what I mean, or a Walmart, because they're kind of faceless corporations. But when I know, Annie over here owns a clothing shop, that's really cool. So just maybe from a SEDCO point of view, the economic development that a lot of people find attractive might be more along the lines of the local small businesses, the Amatos, even though we know they're a chain, they're a main chain. But I think it's, Dunstan Tap and Table, Nonsuch River Brewing, all great examples, O'Reilly's Cure of local businesses that the community does go out and support, and it is a place to gather and meet, even if you don't have kids in sports. So just that aspect, I like to, hopefully SEDCO will consider that. I will say that as a member of the communications committee, I think the idea of a community calendar that, and I'll just anecdotally say, like, if I have a night, Saturday night, and I'm going to go meet a couple of friends from college down in Portland, first thing I do is I go to the Google and find a website that says what's happening in Portland, and private businesses, the Portland government, they all populate it with events going on. So if I wanted to go see, an orchestra show, or if I wanted to go see a hard rock band, all of it was populating on a calendar on that Saturday night for me to really see. And I think that's a good opportunity to also include your business owners into a community-wide calendar. I mean, Broadturn Farm had they were doing talks about bats. I just saw on their calendar. Well, if that popped in on a Saturday night, that might not be what I'm looking for with my college buddies, but Saturday morning, if I find out Saturday morning, my kids might want to go learn about bats at, 1 p.m. It's really kind of cool to have all of that integrated into one spot. So as a member of communications, I think that's a really good opportunity for not just SEDCO, but for communications to explore how do we get private businesses, let us know they have live music on Saturday nights at, Dunstan Tap and Table, or where, can we compile something like that is featured on our website and then does pull up in a Google search of the community. And then one last, I don't want to monopolize time, I know he's short on it. One last thought is some of the, I guess I read the negativity a little differently than some of the people in the room. I think the negativity you may hear from people in the community is coming from the people who know what we have, who love Scarborough and see it for what it is. And there's so much here to offer. Their negativity, I think, is built off of the fear that it is changing, lose the great stuff we have. And I think it's just communicated differently. Some people will view it as overly negative, where I think a lot of it is probably based off of an absolute love for what we have here. And so I think there's plenty of room to get people together on what it is we should be looking forward to in this community and what we want it to look like going forward. And I think that's the big piece. What do you want it to be 10, 20 years from now? There's always room to try to improve some of the things that are happening in town, but I think we always should keep in the mind, like, we are very, we're a great place to live. I mean, truly. And Karen and I had a running joke that the only thing missing in Scarborough was a ski mountain. And I think that's pretty true. I think you can do anything you want except for ski. And you can cross country ski, but you can't downhill ski. But anyways, thanks for listening. And I appreciate all your efforts.
Thanks, John.
And
I'm sorry. Sorry, Nick.
Nick, thank you. And one thing, before we move on to the approvals, one thing just to add on to what you said was about the local businesses was I went to, and I think I saw Kevin there, although we didn't get a chance to talk, but I went to the eggs and issues that featured Rock Row.
Yeah.
And, very, very good eggs and issues. They had the mayor of Westbrook and the developer of Rock Row and, they've had a lot of success over there and, a lot of positive comments at the end when people got up to talk, but there was one woman who got up at the end and said, Rock Row's great, this is great, but it's a lot of national chains and, she's like, I feel like we're losing that local business owner feel to it. And, it wasn't, it was very, very respectful and everything, but, she brought it up and I think the mayor responded to that question and said, thank you, you're 100% right. We get that. What we're really trying to do is, I think, keep Rock Row, maybe the larger chains, but, keep our downtown more local. But I thought it was interesting that she brought that up and I think she was 100% right. So I think, people love local businesses and I think so. It was a good point. Thank you, Nick.
Mhm.
Anything else before we get back to approvals? Okay, so the previous meeting summary, can I have a motion to approve?
So
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the financial report, are there any questions for Karen or Magda?
No.
Motion to approve,
So move.
second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
It's a dirty trick. You make the writing so small you can't read.
I thought you taught her that.
You're supposed to view it on the computer. Blow it up.
Times New Roman 8.
Right. And then if we make it too big and it's 2 pages across, then you can't read it.
Your printer card is getting low, too, right?
Conserving.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, is number 4?
That was really sort of the follow-up, that second piece of this, which is we had all of these things that we like. So how do we measure some of these things? And so we can have a quick discussion on that
Well, I
and then
think
move on to some of these.
there's quite a few discussion up.
Yeah,
So
we could skip that
well,
for now if you want.
do you want to make a suggestion? You're obviously going to take what we just
Yep.
discussed and kind of compile it.
Yeah,
And I think Rick's original suggestion was, look at the things that we think make a desirable community.
Okay.
And then we'll start out by ranking where Scarborough is. I don't know if it's, it's 1 to 10, if it's,
okay.
And how can we improve?
Right.
We do.
Yeah.
But isn't there a next level analysis, like when the gaps are identified, if there are, I think it will be. This board ought to evaluate, can we make any difference in that area?
Right.
Right, I mean, it was a good free flowing discussion, but I'm not sure. Which of those resonates,
Right.
and are kind of in your wheelhouse.
I think some are.
Yeah.
But I guess to your point is. Again, we are trying to promote development. To accomplish goals and things that the town wants. And how can we measure
Mhm.
these things that we just talked about?
Right.
So I think it's identifying where we think we rank on those issues, as Rick said, to Tom's point, what on the things that we can improve, what are sort of in our wheelhouse, and then how do we measure
Mhm.
results? So I think if we go down that road right now, I think we're not gonna have time for
Scatter,
any of the
yeah.
other things. So maybe at the next meeting,
Mhm.
we can move that to that meeting and maybe have a summary of what we just discussed and
Great.
hash that out then.
So we normally don't meet in June, but we did last year. It'd be great if the board was willing to have a meeting in June. Mhm.
What would the date be?
It'd be the 3rd week, which would be, what, if you have the calendar
18th.
available?
15th.
Okay,
June 15th.
all right. So just sort of a regular 18. I'm sorry, what's that?
Have it in the calendar already.
All right, cool.
See you.
Well, if we can make it, great. If not,
I have it on my calendar too.
Excellent.
How convenient.
Good job, Mike.
Okay, so we'll plan on meeting in June, and I think we'll focus I won't put anything else on the agenda. We'll just focus on
I don't
this
believe you.
piece. Yeah,
We'll
I'm gonna do my
go with that
best.
for now.
Yeah, you gotta have goals to aspire to.
Okay, so moving on, Karen, do you want to take us through those?
Sure. So it is that time of year again. We need to start thinking about the annual speaker. So I went ahead and gave you a list of all the previous speakers, just so you can, get your creative thoughts flowing. So up for grabs. Does anybody have any suggestions?
I got one. And this is a little out of the box in terms of what we've done in the past.
There's another category.
My suggestion is to have Tom do a state of the town address. And what I mean by that, and some of the things that I'm thinking along with that is, over the last 12 to 18 months, Tom has had a significant turnaround in senior staff.
Oh,
And-
absolutely.
I think it would be great if he could maybe have those folks in the room, have them stand up so that people can actually see them, recognize them. He can talk a little bit about maybe what they've already brought to the town in terms of maybe some different ideas and suggestions, improvements they've made in their departments, or if not happened already, things that they're contemplating doing. And then maybe also talk about some of the major projects that the town is working on that doesn't necessarily get fed out to the business community, at least not all at once. And just kind of do a state of the town address and introduce some of his staff and stuff. So it's, like I say, it's a different avenue than what we've pursued in the past. But if you also look down that list, I think the only person that I'm aware of that represented Scarborough was the Hannaford discussion over the last 10 to 12 years. So just a thought, have somebody local update the business community on what's going on in the town and introduce the senior leaders that we have that are new to our community.
I'm flattered by this suggestion. I do that annually at the chamber.
Yeah,
Not necessarily highlighting staff, but the state of the town address. Yeah, with all due respect, I'm not sure if I'm the right draw or that's the right subject matter with that audience.
Well, you know what?
well, you do,
Well, and we could put you in
Yeah.
instead of me.
yeah,
And let him do that piece,
Yeah.
and
And my
we can
staff
throw
will be
in a few
there,
things.
of course.
yeah,
Yeah.
Senior
Yeah,
staff is typically
They
represented.
generally are there.
Yeah, you
But maybe
can-
just
they can
change-
introduce
Yeah,
one.
maybe a little bit of what she knows.
That'd be awesome.
5 to 10 minutes rather than be the
Yeah.
keynote or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to do
I think
that.
that makes.
Yeah, and we can, we generally, when you do the state of the town, we throw in some general
Yeah.
where we are. But we can do that, and that'd be
I think it's a great
excellent.
point about the new staff, and
Mhm.
because there's been an immense amount of change at town hall, and I think.
Mhm.
Meet the drivers.
Meet the driver.
We're doing that,
I
okay.
think we talked about it the year 2020, but the Brew Institute might be great.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I know that they're based in Portland, but one of the biggest goals is to create new businesses, and we're exactly the town that's gonna want to try and drag them in.
Right.
So somebody talking about, what's happening with Brew and how it's growing and its goals might be.
I was kind of struggling a little bit yesterday. I didn't think about it too long, but I mean, with the Scarborough connection thing, the current president of Merida, Craig Young, is a Scarborough resident. You know, with everything going, you know, just popped in my mind. And then another thing I thought of was that we, you know, you look at this list and there's, you know, Hannaford, Maine Med, IDEX, you know, we tend to go big companies. But the other thing just popped in is, you know, are there any exciting startups that are in Scarborough? Where someone might be willing to talk about what it's like being a startup in Scarborough versus, you know, a huge corporation. And, you know, why they're in Scarborough. I don't have a name, obviously, but it was the, you know.
Well, the people who are, I just met with them a month or so ago. They are 3D printing body parts.
Jeez.
I wish I
Don't
could
think
figure out.
too much into that now.
And they were just, you know, it was, no, literally, they are 3D printing hip joints and they do it up a prescription when somebody needs a particularly specialized one. And so they have like 4 big closet boxes that just print these miscellaneous body parts. They were fast. It's a fascinating story because the guy who started it grew up in Maine, had to move away to start the company, and then has brought it back now that it's a little bit bigger. And he was bought, a larger corporation bought him, and now he's thinking, no, I think I want to buy it back now. I want to run it again. So anyway, that's an example of something like that.
Yeah, it's not Ian Engelman, is it?
No.
No.
I just think, my thinking was we tend to go large
Yeah.
companies.
Yeah.
And it'd be different to have, you know, someone.
That popped for me too when you said that, Alan, and it might even be. We have a couple of them in different phases. Somebody who's just getting started, somebody who's homegrown and has been in town operating forever. Just to get different angles of small homegrown businesses who've chosen here and stayed here.
Almost a panel you
Yeah.
could do, like,
You know what I've come to appreciate that the meeting is, back to where we started this conversation, really celebrating the good. And it is all the awards, and I wonder, in place of a keynote speaker, why not expand that or accentuate that and have the recipients be prepared to provide, all don't want to speak, but providing a few comments about their story.
I'm gonna step outside the box.
Okay.
What if we had Don Campbell? What if you had him
band?
get up there and talk? And play a couple songs?
Don's a Scarborough guy.
He's a Scarborough guy.
Yeah.
So I met the elections. I saw him. at
Does
the
it,
election.
does a ton of nonprofit. I mean, he's out all the time.
I will say some of the
His groupies
Best-
might follow though.
yeah.
They couldn't.
No,
Right.
right, fair. Yeah.
Don's gonna.
Yeah.
Just him with a guitar.
But I will say that the Robert Moody and Mark Bazier, those are 2 of the speakers that were cultural. Who got, I think, the biggest
along those
impacts.
lines, I went to the Architects discussion of the Portland Museum of Art's expansion.
Yeah.
And the Wabanaki influence within that whole idea of the expansion of the Portland Museum of Art, and maybe that's an angle, is the someone from the indigenous community to speak. Now, Chris Newell was on, he spoke at the beginning of that presentation to set, but maybe there's, you know, Lisa Soccer Basin, or, you know, someone from that community, because, boy, if you're talking the history of Scarborough.
Right.
So we've got about 15 minutes left. do you want to set a date for anyone to send suggestions to you by?
Yeah, would next week be? End of next week? Would that work for folks?
Mhm.
And I think if you have any of your own suggestions, and then we have a list
Okay,
and
yeah, if everybody will send me their suggestions, I'll put together these different concepts as well as just individual speakers. But I think we've locked in Tom doing sort of the state of the town piece. Does that sound like where we are?
I second.
I just don't have a drink to that.
Just showing up and having a drink.
I just throwing out another
I'll
one.
buy you one.
Does Rodney Lawton do like presentations?
We,
Ross-
I was laughing. Could you start that over?
Rodney
Rodney
Lawton,
Lawton,
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah,
the historian.
yeah.
from the history, from a historical perspective. I've never heard, I mean, I've never seen him speak, but. I mean, does he do that?
Yeah,
I
he
would think
spoke
he
at the
does.
chamber not too long ago as one of the as an annual meeting speaker.
Did
Oh,
we,
he did the chamber
Yeah,
at one time?
yeah.
How long ago?
4 or 5 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe more. I don't know, I lose track. There's 3 years missing.
yeah, he did the chamber. I remember that one.
This may not be a speaker, but an opportunity maybe, just to throw it out again. Is there something that we can or should do to recognize Nancy Kroll's retirement
Mm,
Oh, she retiring?
in
Mhm.
September?
In September.
Wow.
Isn't there gonna be?
Yeah. After 40 some
I
odd
thought there was
years?
gonna be, it was talking. Separate event.
yeah.
Maybe
But I
there
think
is,
we
but I
can-
just,
Just
We could acknowledge it in the
acknowledgement.
beginning, and when we're talking
Cause
about.
we, last year we did an acknowledgement of those that had passed.
Exactly.
Right.
yes, I
So that
was
was-
gonna ask, are we gonna do that again, or and do we have any names?
I don't have any names right now, but I'm probably not thinking about it either, but let's look and see if
As we
there's,
get closer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see how many people pop up this summer. Is that what you're saying?
It's the world I live in.
Yeah.
Also, at one point, we had talked about having like a nonprofit at the, like. Having a table so that people could learn more about the nonprofit as well, so I can't remember.
There's not, the problem I think was
The
the
space.
space.
Yeah.
But I do think that's I know we always talk about these other events, but that's another, I think that's another
Could we do a
opportunity.
poster or something that
Yeah.
highlights a nonprofit that, or a couple of nonprofits, just, I think. Good stewards.
Sure.
This is opening up a can of worms that we don't have time for, but I'm leaning toward format change here. I think the speaker is the part that people care the least about. And I'm leaning toward a combination of what
No
Tom and
offense,
Kevin
Tom.
said, where, well,
No.
no, I mean, the guest speaker
Yeah.
is a long speech when people go to have dinner and
Yeah.
celebrate awards. I think we treat it like an awards show. I think we spread the awards out over the course of the evening.
Mhm.
We have
Oh,
moments where you come up and give the state of business. Tom introduces the new people. We feature a nonprofit. We just kind of keep the program going throughout the evening.
Hmm.
And it's a celebration more than an education. And maybe we have somebody come in and do a performance during dinner hour. I think we treat it more like an award
party,
show
yeah.
than a meeting that everybody comes and sits through.
I love that idea.
It's like, I'll work on it with you, because I just caused that problem.
You own it. No, I think that's
great.
very doable.
Could get the high school
I think
jazz
that makes
band
a lot
to
of sense.
come.
Pick
and-
Oh, yeah.
It's built around the theme of,
Change.
success and Scarborough, what makes Scarborough
Mhm.
great. Changes, on those sorts of themes, get away maybe for a year, I think. A guest speaker. Some of the guest speakers have been great, some have been okay.
Mhm.
And I think you're right, they don't necessarily, they're not the high point.
I don't think it's why people go.
People like
They
to
go
hear
for the
what-
awards.
what's
I agree.
going on.
I-
You know,
I think people go to see people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the awards,
It's a network.
yeah, we've had some great speakers, but I think the crowd's there every year. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think if we,
Have more awards. Possibly. You know,
Spread it
and-
out over the course of the
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah.
We'll want
Okay.
Another talk about this.
Yeah.
All right, 2 topics in June.
Right, yeah, I told you. More awards, I knew it, I knew it.
Karen, these are not the award categories. I know they've.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah,
a corner
we-
that's always. but
Yeah,
there's
we pick,
other
yeah.
pieces that have kind of
Yeah,
ebbed and flowed.
sometime, yeah, I'll send out the previous awardees that we do that every year. I just need to update for last year. And I think sometimes we decide about the business and then we sort of fit them into the category, but so we've never let a category, stop us from,
But if we
recognizing
spread them
a
out, we can
business.
ask them to tell their story.
Yeah.
right?
That might be maybe an award for a long-standing contributor to the town of Scarborough. Like Nancy.
Yeah. We've done that before. As a matter of fact, yeah.
She could be the legacy award.
Mm. Okay,
Back when exit 42 was there, seasonal exit off was the name.
oh, wow.
It's 45 years, I think.
Wow. And so, and I think all these others,
You got 10 minutes left if you want to
Okay.
touch on them.
yeah, so, we did meet as a small business, resource hub committee meeting with, Helen and Jason and, Jim. And they came up with the idea, we don't just want to do sort of the electronic or the digital piece, but they want to do more of an ambassador program, particularly for folks like Jim and Jason who've been through the process, so to speak, and they sort of have some insights of that. And so that's a little bit of an interesting add-on to this concept. And I think I don't know if you want to talk.
Yeah, it
to
was,
that?
when we were just talking about it too, and when we personally started, we met with Karen. We've been through a bunch, Jim and I have been through kind of the permitting, you need to do this, you need to do that, like, so. We kind of know what to look for when new businesses are starting on the smaller end of things, so what better resource than people that have already been through it?
Right,
And Jim and I we would love to be able to help people through, and you make connections that way too, so if it's not in your forte, somebody in town that you can kind of direct them to, and I think we kind of talked about it as it'd be an education for ourselves too.
Yep.
So in terms of dealing with permitting and all the other things that kind of are above our head, we can actually learn about them and be able to inform next person that comes through about those processes,
Right.
so.
right.
Just a way again to attract a small business, to make it less intimidating, make that whole process and kind of just help steer
Sure.
them in the right direction.
So that's the most important on that list in terms of the sludge report. Things are not fixed, but they seem to be better, and at least not in a crisis mode right now. So there are a couple of things at the legislature, there are things being done. So for us, I think the critical piece is checked off the box. We just need to follow what's happening. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's fair. To my knowledge, they're still sending the sludge to New Brunswick. That's not a long-term fix, and it's
Right.
costly. I did attend the Mother's Day event at Runter Farm, and Senator Brenner was there, not surprisingly. And I don't know the particulars, but she said that there's a fix that's going to be happening, coming out of this legislature. That's still not long-term necessarily,
Right.
but the crisis has been. Yes.
Right. I did attach the growth report that we did for the council as they were debating some of the things going on, and trying to really set some benchmarks as we go forward with the rate of growth ordinance. So that was for your benefit. It's also, I think, a sample of how we could do as we develop these other indicators, add on to that or have a separate one that's really just SEDCO oriented. But we just wanted to there's so much discussion about what's happening in the community, and what we wanted to do is just set here's what the data tells us. And there are a couple of good exercises that were done as part of that report. One of them was looking at the contribution of new residential development to the tax base, and the result of that analysis that was done by our tax assessor, Nick Cloutier, is that over the past 3 years, new residential development has really offset $600 in terms of an average, say, I think $400,000 home value was used. And so people's taxes are about $600 less because of the new development. And that's only the residential. We didn't look at the commercial side of that. So anyway, I think there's some good information in there. Tom, you're
No, I just
squinting
wanna
eyes.
give a shout out to you, make sure this board appreciates all the support work, expert level work you do in support of the town's initiatives. From your leadership and support for the comp plan process, which was excruciating. This is a prime example of instilling down some very complicated information to understandable, useful format, something you can use, measure going forward. More recently, Karen's done detailed expert analysis on impact of zoning changes and implications of TIF and CEA expansions. This is stuff you'd be spending tens of thousands of dollars for.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing with them.
Excellent. So, and Tom mentioned a really good thing is that the comp plan, finally, we do have our certification. We are good for 12 years. So 2035, I don't think I'm going to be here in 2035,
We'll
but
be here in 2035.
yeah. So that will,
Jason probably.
yeah, exactly.
Get ready.
You're going to lead the comp plan. Yeah. So anyway, that is a very.
Right.
We all have to do that.
But no, it's the certification process. All it means is that the state has given us a certification that we are consistent with state goals, and therefore we can move forward with updating our growth management program, which includes the rate of growth ordinance, our zoning ordinance, and impact fees. So we needed that certification in order to move us forward on those really important parts of a growth management program for Scarborough. So
Terry, do you have any copies of it? I thought it.
of the certificate.
No,
Oh, I didn't bring
growth-
it with us. I do have this, if you're talking about the growth
Yeah,
report.
I didn't, you have this, can I
Yeah.
have it? Oh,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
A good next one too. Cool, that's it.
I need a Saturday morning alone to read, but I went through it. And it really is well done.
Yeah.
There was just like a ton of, like, I could ask a million questions off it, if I could remember what I read. But it was just a ton of information.
Great. Great. And there's
Very
going to be,
well done.
just so you know, there's more information coming out. The new 2022 estimates are out actually today. Today's the 18th. Yes, today the new estimates are out. So we'll be building on
Had
this.
that circled underneath that one.
I do have it circled on my
Sure.
calendar. I always have these things that, when the data releases are out. I was very disappointed. There's actually, there's supposed to be new income data update on Monday, but they did not issue it. So I double checked, but it should be out this week, new income levels for affordable and workforce housing. And then again, we already talked about the all board summit. So we're hoping to get at least 2 people from each of the different committees. We don't have a ton of time, but it's like an initial. I think the real hope of the summit is you get to meet some folks from different committees and you're like, I do need to talk with you. And then you can set things up for later.
I will be there.
Excellent.
I think I can be there.
Yeah.
June 8th, right?
Yes.
I have it on my.
Yes.
As soon as you told me.
And so we're getting some good response from others. But if you guys know you can be there, Magda will sign you up, and so you don't have to go through Eventbrite. But we have to show of hands.
I put it in my calendar. I thought I'd go.
Are you
I
still
can-
promising
I'm
games
sure.
and prizes?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Well
Yeah,
represented.
you're bringing them. Yes, lunch with each of with your choice of a counselor.
That's a surprise.
Yes.
I choose Tom.
Right. I could put him in that.
There's a number of counselors.
Okay,
Uh,
we are,
Can I just make
Oh.
one announcement? So.
I was gonna, if you didn't, I was gonna make it for you.
Oh, no, I have a
Something
different.
else. Oh, okay.
Okay. I just wanted to say, we are on track for our new development, our new community. And if you can all put June 22nd at 4 p.m. down on your calendars, we'll do an invite. But that's gonna be our grand opening.
Oh,
At starting at 4 to 6. And our first move-ins will be the following Monday, June 26th.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
It's great.
so it's very exciting. It's,
Congratulations.
they still have a lot of work to do, but they're
Nothing
narrowing
like
it
a
down.
grand opening to.
I know,
push
the
them on
town's coming
that.
out next week for the inspection, so fingers crossed. knock on
Yeah.
wood.
Another exciting news for
Yeah.
you, I was gonna announce that Parker's been accepted to James.
Oh, yeah, my son's going to James.
Sure.
Yes,
Be a Duke.
he's gonna be a dude. Yes,
They're
he is
pretty
gonna
much
be a
what it says.
dude. James Madison University.
Interesting.
In Virginia. Your
Yep.
nephew did?
Jonathan.
Oh, we're really excited.
Yeah.
It's a little far for me, but that's okay. He's gonna be really
It's a
happy there.
nonstop to DC.
Yeah.
You can get a
It's easy,
nonstop.
Yeah.
an easy way to
It is an easy flight. It's still 2 hours.
Driving to Orono.
I I know, it's still 2 hours away from there, but it's okay. But yes, thank you, John. Yes.
Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss before we adjourn? Is Nick still on? Nick, if you're still on, anything to add?
Thanks, John. I'm all set, but good meeting.
Great, thank you for listening in and for jumping in earlier. With that, we motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right at 9:30. Well done, John. I thought this thing was gonna be out of control.
4 o'clock.